We're back. We're back, Nick.
Yes.
This
yes,
is episode 3, part 2, I believe.
I have no idea.
I'm gonna go with that. I think there's just so many parts that it's hard to do, you know. But this is gonna be this one's mine. I brought a serial killer, of course, like I always do. And Nick, what's the worst thing you've ever done?
Worst thing I've ever done?
Maybe put you in handcuffs, or might not have put you in handcuffs. Maybe you didn't get caught.
Worst thing I've ever done?
Worst thing you've ever done, Nick? Worst thing you've ever done?
I mean, I stole my friend's girlfriend, but he was a dickhead. Does that count?
Okay.
I don't know. The only thing I can think of. I stole a pack of Mario cards from a dollar store when I was like 6. Still think about it every now and then.
Did you say Mario cards?
Yeah, they were cards. They were like Super Mario cards. It was like a pack of cards, and I brought them home and they sucked. And I had this overwhelming sense of shame. And I was like, why did I even steal those? They sucked.
Like
Oh,
baseball cards, or
I
kind of
guess,
cards like
yeah,
back in the early 90s?
Yeah, they were the shape and size of playing cards or well, not really baseball cards, more like playing cards, I guess, but from what I vaguely remember, but I put them in my pocket and I left with them. I also stole a pack of rubber bands from a dollar store. I just remembered that. And my dad's like, are you serious?
Rubber bands?
I remember. Yeah, I remember this, and he's just like, they cost $1. You know, I would have bought them. And he's like, you know, you have to take those back in there now. I'm like, yeah. Well, I don't know why.
So you got embarrassed by your superiors.
Yeah, like my totally weak spoils. It was terrible. It's terrible. I don't know why I did it. I mean, it was a meager sum, but yeah, I did it. I don't know why.
Yeah, I mean, I've stolen from stores and never been caught, never been in handcuffs. You ever been in handcuffs, Nick?
Oh yeah.
Oh, well, that sounds like more of a worse story than stealing Mario cards.
Yeah, but I still don't think that. I think that shoplifting and stealing was worse than the times
Times, like multiple times. You've been in handcuffs multiple times.
3.
What?
3, I think. Yeah. I don't know. I've been questioned and put in handcuffs. I don't know. What are we doing right here?
I don't know. It's just I was just trying to figure out the worst thing you've done. I've never been in handcuffs. I don't know a whole lot about you, Nick, and I didn't know you've ever even been in handcuffs.
I would say the times that I was put in handcuffs were not the worst things I did.
Oh.
I would say that.
Okay.
There are no bodies anywhere or anything. There's nothing like that.
Oh yeah, nothing that bad. But I just figured, stealing Mario cards might not be as bad as something I've done to be able to be in handcuffs over.
Well, I mean, I was younger than 21, and I got drunk and I got put in handcuffs. I wouldn't say that that's worse than stealing.
Oh no! I see. So now, you're explaining yourself. So. Well, we got 2 more times you're in handcuffs. Explain those. Why are those not as bad as stealing Mario cards?
I don't know. I mean, you could ask Josh about one of them.
Josh, who's our good sponsor from H2O.
Yeah, I'm sure he'd love that. He'd love that to be tied to him.
Mm-hmm.
The third... I managed to get a DUI at noon.
I think I do believe Josh has mentioned that's when he was going to work or
yes,
after a party or something.
I got a DUI at noon, and I also did not drink that day. Technically, well, pretty funny story, I guess. I was working a pizza delivery job, and I was partying like I always did, early 20s, and we were drinking Everclear for some stupid fucking reason. And somehow I ended up with a bottle of Everclear and about, I don't know, a teaspoon of orange juice left in a jug. And I just poured a bunch of Everclear into it, probably about 2, 3 a.m. And I was like, check this shit out. You know, yeah, I'm a fucking idiot. And I looked at my buddy, I poured all this Everclear in there. I'm like, the orange juice is going to kill it. And he's like, don't do that. Don't do that. And I'm like, fuck you.
Don't do that.
So then I just slammed the fuck out of the jug with orange juice. And like, you know, it's like 1 part orange juice, 10 parts Everclear, probably 2, 3 o'clock in the morning before I passed out on the floor. But I was like, I'm going to fucking do it. And then I slammed it, and I looked him right dead in the eyes, and I said, why'd you let me do that, you fucking asshole? And he's like, I kept telling you not to, you dickhead. And then, you know, I passed out on the floor, got up, found my keys at probably about, I don't know, 11:30 in the morning. I was like, well, I got a job to go. You know, I'm 23, 22, whatever. You know, drinking doesn't affect you. Hangovers are a mystery. It's not real. You know, that's for other people. So I get up, and I decided to drive home. I'm going to, you know, go take a nap for like an hour, take a shower or whatever, and then go to work and do 10-hour shift into 1 o'clock in the morning, you know, right around, smoke 1 or 2, whatever. And I decided to run across McFarland, which was a 4-lane highway, and it was red when I got up to it, but I was like, fuck it. Just drove straight to it, looked back, there was a cop, and, you know. I berated that guy too.
Yeah, like, mistakes were made.
Yeah, mistakes were made, but I berated that guy. He was like, I smell alcohol, and I was like, no, you don't. And, you know, I'm pretentious and whatever. And he's like, why don't you get out? And I do a field sobriety test. And I did injure my ankle like a week before skateboarding. And he's like, you have any injuries? And I said, no, but I did. But I did the field sobriety test and everything, passed flying colors. And he's like, I still think you're inebriated. And I was like, and I think you're crazy. And so they brought people out to search my car and shit, handcuffs me, puts me in the back of the car, and he's like, you didn't pass. And I was like, yeah, I did. And then I'm sitting in the back of the car, they're towing my car. And I'm like, my house is right there. Can somebody come pick it up? And he's like, no, he's a dickhead, total dickhead. And so I'm riding in the car, and I'm like, man, you are going to be so sorry when we get up there. I'm like, what if I get up there and blow nothing? He's like, we're going to find out. I was like, yeah, we will find out.
You're going to be so sorry, man.
Yeah, I was like, this is an injustice. I was saying that dumb shit. Like, you know, young, entitled, all that dumb shit.
Do you know who my father is?
No, none of that. I was never rich, so. But still, though, I mean, the guy was a dick. I mean, even to this day. And I was like, well, yeah, we are going to see, because I'm going to get up there, I'm going to blow zero. You're going to love that one. Because they're sitting there for an hour. Brought 3 motherfuckers, you know what Forsyth County is. Brought 3 motherfuckers out, search my car, wait for the tow guy to come, shows up. I haven't done a breathalyzer. We're going all the way up to Forsyth County to take the breathalyzer. I walk in, I do some paperwork and shit. I go into the fucking breathalyzer test thing, and this female deputy's standing there, and she's like, okay, blow into this fucking huge, massive, like, Whopper, like, War Games NASA thing. Hands me a hose, and she's
what
like,
year was this?
Fucking 2000, fucking 10, maybe?
And they got one of those War Game computers? You talking about the Matthew Broderick movie, War Games?
Yeah, it was the fucking Whopper.
Like, huge computer.
She basically attached a fucking garden hose to the Whopper, and she's like, blow into this thing. And I was like, okay, whatever, get you out. So I get the hose, and I blow into it, and this beep, 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 beep. I think it sent a nuke to Russia, but it also told me that I blew a .025. And I was like, okay, .025, that's cool. And then I looked at her, and she's like, yeah, go ahead and blow again. Ooh. You know, and then it's registered, and I was like, what's the limit for me? Because I'm 20. I'm not 21. And she's like,
I guess anything is a limit if you're not legal age.
No. This is the best part of the story. And I was like, what's illegal? And she's like, .025. And I was like, are you serious right now? What? And she's like, just blow again. So I blow again, and it says literally .025. And I was like, that's illegal for me, right? And she said, yeah. And I said, just barely, right? And she's like, that's exactly enough to be over. And I looked at her and I said, well, pardon my French, man, but isn't that about a bitch? And she's like, yeah, it is. And she's like, you didn't wake up and have about 3 beers? And I said, no, I was drinking last night. She's like, you must have been snookered then. And I'm like, yeah. And then from that point on, all the way till I went in the holding cell, every cop and their fucking brother was coming in and be like, you blew a .025 at noon? I was like, yeah. And they're like, man, you must have been drunk as a skunk last night. Yeah, I was. And that was the thing. I never let people drive drunk. That's the thing. I'm like, don't do it. It's stupid. I mean, you're endangering yourself. You're endangering everybody. I never drive drunk. I don't even think I was driving drunk then.
Oh, you're exactly right.
And I still to this day.
You're exactly right.
I mean, and to this day, if I have 2 beers, I don't drive. If I have 2 beers, I don't drive. And everybody knows that. I'm like, look.
Yeah, but I'll try to go to sleep, and sleep off a few hours and then try to go to work at like 4 o'clock in the morning. And
that's different. Sure.
But that is extremely funny that you said that, Nick, because there's going to be not the drunk part, but just people being like imprisoned for the wrong reasons a lot in this story.
Sometimes for the right ones.
Yeah, like they, the same way with your story. Like they were in a situation where they thought like, all right, yeah, kind of bad things have happened, but I'll just submit to the cops, and they'll just, they'll let me go because I haven't really done anything wrong. I think I've done everything right.
Right.
And that's going to happen. It's going to happen a good bit in the story. The only reason I ask you is because the guy in the story tonight, is going to do a whole lot of things wrong. And he's going to get caught several times. And he's going to get released, and he's just going to repeat itself over and over. This guy messes up, and gets away with things, and then messes up badly and don't get away with things. If you know what I mean.
I guess this is where he divulges the one time where I've done some modicum of research here. This guy is a testimony to never learning from your mistakes.
No, he will learn from his mistakes. That's kind of what progresses it. And I'm glad that you used all those gigantic fucking words because I'm Southern and I didn't understand a damn thing about it, Nick.
Yeah, liar. Bullshit.
You want me to start this?
Yeah.
All right. I'm gonna start it. Okay. All right, we're going to be talking about Edgar Cook. And I have dubbed him from henceforward Ugly Ed. And we'll get more into why we're calling him Ugly Ed, later on in the story. He was born in 1931 in Netherlands, West Australia, which is a suburb of Perth, the capital city of West Australia, because they have such creative names in Australia. I don't know. We're on the west side. Let's just call it West Australia. Right, crikey. I'm gonna try to do an Australian accent throughout the story too. I'm not real good at it. You got a good Australian accent?
Hell no. I can say cunt though.
Oh, that's a term that will be used a lot as a term of endearment. Yo, cunt, like that.
That's how I use it.
Yeah, I use it. No, it's Scottish.
Yeah, cunt.
You always got to be like, good eye, mate. Oh, crikey, something like that.
Yeah, cunt.
So we're gonna get into his family, all right? And then he's got his family. His family is this is serial shit killer in the making.
Can I go ahead and guess that they were super awesome?
They were not super awesome.
Okay.
He had a good loving mother, but his father was kind of like his father was named Vivian Cook, and we're just gonna call him Drunk Viv. And we're about to get into why we're calling him Drunk Viv right now. He was a raging alcoholic. He would regularly beat the crap out of his wife. I'm trying not to cuss or to use really bad words. He would beat the shit out of his wife, especially while she was pregnant. And it was a loveless marriage right from the rip. They only got married because she was pregnant, and she was pregnant with old ugly Ed. She was a teen parent. I couldn't find out a lot about the upbringings of both parents, but
needless to say, it was probably pretty rough.
Yeah. So old Drunk Viv, yeah, couldn't find out nothing about him. His mother, Christine Kerr Edgar, she was born in Scotland, and she worked at the Como Hotel. It was a little hotel and a restaurant at 243 Canning Highway, Como, West Australia. Such a creative name, right? You know, West Australia.
Absolutely.
and it's still there to this day. It's on the Perth Historical Site, but now it's just a bar and grill or a pub, maybe, you know, like that. But it's still there. It's still there to this day. The same building. And she would sleep at the Como Hotel in like the staff rooms, just so she wouldn't have to go home to old Drunk Viv, because Drunk Viv was there hammered, just waiting on her, so he could just beat the shit out of something. You know, he was always just wanting to fight. I don't know. He was just a mean dude, terrible.
If you didn't know any better, and you were to hear the term old Drunk Viv, you would think flannel rolled up to the elbows.
Yeah.
Butch haircut, a bit squat, a bit hefty, a bit husky of a woman, swilling Jack Daniels all day long.
No, this is his father.
I know, that's what I'm saying.
Oh,
but if you were to imagine without knowing it, old Drunk Viv, it's like nobody wants to be beat up by old Drunk Viv.
Dang,
nobody.
You know, I think at one point I might have figured out how big he was, because that kind of came into play later with how small his son was, but I don't have it here, so I don't know. But I don't think he was that big of a dude. I'm picturing like, you know, 5'6", maybe 5'7", 110, 115 pounds, like, you know, some little swarthy, like, you know, Irish drunk that's just small with like, you know,
Irish
Napoleon complex or whatever. Like wanting to fight everything that comes.
Those Irish drunks just fucking spread out, didn't they? They made their way everywhere, even Australia.
So I mean, I really couldn't find out a lot about his parents, but
we'll go with that. Let's go with that.
It pretty much was just a loveless marriage, just right from the rip, just a loveless marriage. And the only thing I could figure out with him was that Drunk Viv, he lived until October 14th, 1996. And he outlived his wife, Christine, who died in 1974. And I couldn't find a date or a month on that, no matter how much I dove. So he lived, 22 years? 22 years after his wife died.
He lived, he died. What a legacy.
So now we're going to start our story on, now we got his upbringing. We found out where old Ugly Ed's coming from, right?
Yeah, why is he ugly?
All right, like I said, we're talking about Eric Edgar Cook, or as I've dubbed him, Ugly Ed. He was born February 25th, 1931, and he would eventually be the eldest of 3 children. And like I said, I couldn't find anything out about him. I did find some information about other relatives, but nothing that would either... there is one thing I'll mention at the end. I might as well mention it now, because I'll probably forget. Is he did have one of his children. He had 7 children. One of his children's children, one of his grandchildren, will go every year to the prison that will eventually be locked in. Spoiler alert: he does get caught, and holds a rose outside as a visual to him, which I don't understand, because this guy's a piece of shit.
Not a good guy.
This guy is not good.
Not a good guy.
I mean, he's a piece of shit.
Yeah, fair to say.
And
goofy as fuck.
So when he was born, what I say, February 25th, 1931, 20, yep. And he was born with a cleft palate. And I don't want to knock a cleft, but this dude's such a piece of shit that I'm using the cleft palate he had against him.
The only addition that I would put to that like bears mentioning is the fact that he has the cleft palate seems to permeate through his life for why he's bullied.
Yeah, it's not just, most people are just born with a cleft palate and they're bad, but we're about to get into why his cleft palate is so bad.
Right.
So when he was 3 years old.
It bears mentioning for that reason.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when he was 3 years old in 1934, he had his first surgery to correct his cleft palate. And it was botched. And it left him looking worse than before. 6 months later, the parents and the doctors, and probably more of the parents than the doctors, wanted to do another surgery to try to correct his last botched surgery. And this surgery was fucking botched. So this left ugly Ed with a facial deformity which would affect his childhood in the most tremendous ways. Now he starts school, and he gets bullied a lot. This school was Subiaco Primary School, and it's located at 271 Bagot, West Australia, and it's 271 Bagot Road, West Australia, and it's still there, and it's almost unchanged. Right? You can look it up on Google Maps right now. And he would be expelled from that school. Do what? You want to look it up? Are you looking it up?
That's a fantastic job on the pronunciation there. I think Subiaco, yeah, that's pretty good.
Subiaco, yeah. He would be expelled from that school at age 6 for stealing money from a teacher's purse. But they all said he showed promise, and he was a perfect student, and he was really good at subjects that required retaining memory. And we're going to get more into about like why the retaining memory part. It's going to go all kinds of different ways with him retaining memory. All right, so then he was transferred to the Newcastle Street School, and he was bullied, and he got into fights, and he got changed schools again. In fact, he's going to change schools so many times. I went down this rabbit hole, and I'm not even going to mention it anymore because we go through a whole lot of schools. He is bouncing all over the place, and his home life wasn't much better.
Litany.
His own dad hated him because of the way old ugly Ed looked. And he took most of his beatings from trying to, like, protect his mama. Like, when his mama would come home from work, he would try to, like, get him between them and protect him from old drunk Viv. And I said old drunk Viv. Just drunk Viv again. And so he took most of his beatings from trying to, protect his mama. And then he would go and, like, hide underneath the house. He slept most of the time underneath the house. And then this is Australia, and like the mid 1930s, and for some reason he starts going to orphanages and stuff. I think his parents just get tired of him being there, and they're just like, well, let's just put him in an orphanage for like a week or two or something. Yeah,
that part was really strange to me. It's
like Albert Fish was like going to orphanages because his mother couldn't care for him. You know what I'm saying? Like I don't know why. I couldn't figure out why, but it was just like it was just talking about him going into orphanages and foster homes and such.
Right, but these people were using the orphanage like a timeshare with their kid, like a babysitter. Who has an off and on like orphanship with their kid? Like, I mean, I love my kid, but I'm not just going to drop them off and be like, not sure if I can do it for another week.
There ain't no way I would just take Tech Guy and just be like, hey, I can't take care of this dude. I need y'all to take care of him for a couple weeks while I get my feet on the ground and get a job.
But it's not even that, though. It's like, I'm going to leave him with you, and if I never come back, you got it, right? Okay, cool. But if I do come back, just be like, yeah, I'll take him back.
It does seem like in most of these stories, they do come back to get them. But it's like they're just dropping them off.
Yeah. So, like, should we give the parents credit here? Because it's like, well, you do go back and get them. That's good.
He was going around between different orphanages and foster homes, And then in 1945, he quit school to start working to, help support his family. And he was hospitalized a lot for head injuries. And this would have been, I guess he'd have been about 13, 14. He was hospitalized for head injuries.
Brain damage.
So many times he was hospitalized that they started to think he was suffering brain damage. And now he wasn't suffering the head injuries from beatings like you was probably thinking, but because he was so goddamn blunderous, clumsy. Just to name a few, these were all like work accidents. Just to name a few of the accidents of his head injuries that he took at work, not from the beatings. He once broke his nose when his face stopped a swinging winch.
I'm sorry, I have to stop you there. When I was reading that, the only thing I could think was the scene in Tommy Boy where Chris Farley walks in, all swaddling, and the conveyor's coming. He's like, but less funny, more stupid, but the same sentiment. It's like the dude is basically a skinnier, uglier Chris Farley. None of the charm, but with the same dumbass accidents.
I'm pretty sure when the winch hit him in the face, he went, "Oh, son of a!"
That one, son of a.
And then he also suffered second-degree burns when he used the same face to stop a broken steam valve.
He used that same face.
He also had multiple broken fingers. He broke both thumbs. He broke one hand, and he also broke his jaw.
Wow.
And I also read that when he was 16 going to work now. When he was 16, he always signed his lunch bag Al Capone because he wanted to look like a badass.
Of course.
Right. So then around the age 17, so we're going to say 1948-ish, is when he started getting into like petty crimes like theft, and breaking and entering, vandalism. Nothing too bad,
Petty.
But he got caught for doing stupid stuff. And he served 1.5 years in jail for arson after he burned down a church. And the sole reason for burning down this church was because they wouldn't let him join the church choir. Ugly Ed.
I wish I had a quality thing to add to that, but it's just so ridiculous it stands alone.
Yeah, it's just Ugly Ed. This dude just does so much for no reason at all. Other than he just wants to commit crimes because it makes him feel good. That's the kind of motive we're going here. This guy has
if you subtracted the violence, he'd be goofy and lovable. Maybe.
There is so many like small, big, and major crimes that I just have to skip over so that this podcast won't be 3 days long. Because this guy just does anything he wants to, whenever he wants to, however he wants to. So he got arrested. He did serve 1.5 years in jail for arson after he burned down the church. And after his release, that's when things start to escalate now. He would sneak into houses and he would steal just about anything he thought was valuable. And then, just to be a fucking asshole, he would like tear up their furniture, rip up clothes. He would just cause structural damage to the house. Just being a complete brain damaged little bitch, Is he brain damaged? We're going to find out. I don't know. And on March 12th, 1949, the police finally caught up with Cook, and they found evidence at his grandmother's house. And I could not find anything out on his grandmother. All I know is he was living with his grandmother, but I couldn't find a name, I couldn't find an address, I couldn't find nothing. And they found old Ugly Ed's fingerprints from his previous stint with the arson church, matched fingerprints with all these other open cases. And on May 24th, 1949, Ugly Ed was sentenced to prison. Man,
3 years.
That was
3 years. 3 years in prison.
I don't have it wrote down. I thought I did.
He was in 1949. Cook was sentenced to 3 years in prison after being arrested for arson and vandalism. He was convicted on 2 charges of stealing, 7 of breaking and entering, and 4 of arson. Left many fingerprints and easy clues for detectives, which would teach him to be more careful in his future crimes.
Thunder, man. You stealing my thunder.
I'm just here. I just got your back. I got your back.
I got you. All right, man. I'm gonna edit you in like that. And now this is when the real shit's gonna start.
I got your back. This is a partnership.
This is where I have spent the most time. This was a doozy, Nick.
Oh no, you have done your research, and I'm studious.
Get ready, Nick, because yes, I have read every newspaper article. I have read every story there is to be read. And by God, I'm gonna read this like I wrote it, and I hope that it sounds good.
Rapt attention.
I put some time in on this.
I know it.
After his release from prison in 1952, Ugly Ed, he joined the Army, where he was quickly promoted to Lance Corporal. This is where he learned to use firearms, but was discharged after 3 months when his background check revealed all of his previous crimes. The following year, on October 14th, 1953, Ugly Ed married Sarah Levine, and they also call her Sally, which will come into play a little bit here in a little bit. They had 7 children together. He also beat and verbally abused her and womanized her the entire time. And despite all of her friends' pleas to leave him, she remained married to him all the way until the end. They were married at the Methodist Church in Cannington, and that church is no longer there. It was torn down in 1995. I looked it up. There's just apartment buildings there now. In the early 50s and early 60s in Australia, West Australia, people felt safe, and they didn't always lock up all their homes or cars. You know, they always left everything just open. There was really nothing to fear, and they were seriously oblivious to the horrors of the world. And here in the next few years, Ugly Ed's going to change the minds of every person living in Perth and most of West Australia. He found it extremely easy to break into cars at night and steal what was in them. Often he would find keys just in the ignition, and he could steal cars easily and return the cars before sunrise with the owners being none the wiser. Remember those times?
Me? No.
No? Yeah, me neither.
No.
Yeah, it was always, you always lock everything up.
Wait, which one? Am I joyriding the cars, or am I leaving my car unlocked? Which?
No, I mean, they left their cars unlocked with keys in the ignition.
Why would you ever do that?
There was no reason to. I mean, this is the 1950s in Western
Yeah,
Australia.
but 1950 does not give you an excuse to be dumb.
So now you know how you know not to do that?
Yeah.
This guy just proved to the entire West Australia why you don't do this.
Sure.
This is why Western Australia started locking their houses. One night in 1955, while cheating on his wife, he was following his girlfriend in a stolen car to Bainbury, which is a northern suburb of Perth. And he was in a high-speed car crash, and he would be hospitalized. And after discharge from the hospital, he was sentenced to 2 years of hard labor at the Fremantle prison. And that, I'm foreshadowing there, the Fremantle prison. That's going to come in and play a lot. But was released from prison the following year on Christmas and returned home to his wife, who still didn't leave him. So we're going to call her Stupid Sally. That's why we said some of her friends called her Sally. So now her name is Stupid Sally. Stupid Sally that never leaves this guy. She never leaves him. She stays with him all the way to the end. And at this point, Ugly Ed finally figures out he needs to start wearing gloves so he don't hide his fingerprints. So maybe he's not that bad.
Finally! Finally! It's the easiest way to be caught is a fucking fingerprint. In fact, back in the 1950s, if they didn't leave fingerprints, cops would just walk onto a crime scene, start looking around and be like, is the killer still here? No? Because if you're not still standing next to a body or a burning building, they're like, who wanted to burn it down? Oh, we have no idea. Well, I guess we'll never find him. I mean, like, you had to be the worst. The dumbest. But then again, that's who we're talking about, so, I digress.
All right, yeah, because you're sidetracking me. I've got, like 15 more
My
pages.
bad. I had to point it out because that's crazy.
And so, okay, and this is when his murder spree is going to begin. This is when his whole, like, super crime spree is going to begin. Because there is so much he does that I leave out.
A lot of murder.
I mean, there's just so much. This is, and then everything he's going to do, this is why he's going to be called the Night Killer. And then later on, the Nedlin Monster. And then way, way later on, like 60, 70 years later, we're going to call him Ugly Ed. That's his three nicknames. Nightcaller, Nedlin Monster, and Ugly Ed. And he would go on to commit 8 murders and 14 attempted murder attempts. And his murders were completely random. They all used different methods of killings. The victims were all completely different. He had no, like, specific profile for his victims. In fact, the police thought they were investigating, like, a whole bunch of different, like, crimes than just one serial killer. It would take years before they finally realized, like, oh, this is all the same guy. And I was gonna do a really deep dive into every victim, every murder that he did. And it just went on and on and on and on. But I did find a couple stories. I did find a couple of his murders that I really did jump into.
Okay.
And really bring up some stuff that I think, like, old newspaper articles that I didn't even hear. I listened to 2 podcasts. Neither one of them were like my guy. And then I watched one Australian documentary on him. But I found some stuff that none of that talked about. So I'd been writing for months. I'd be writing for months if I try to do everything. So
I only had one thing to touch on as far as method, as far as killing goes.
Touch it.
That, like, I feel like I have to address hit and runs. That is a wild way to kill people.
Wait a minute, what?
Hit and run. That's a wild. That shows.
Wait a minute. Have you looked ahead? We got our first sponsor, and I'm excited because we got our first sponsor. But I'm also excited because it's a company that I like and have used before in the past. H2O is a siding, gutter, window, and driveway cleaner service that is a notch above the rest. They made my home and driveway look brand new. They're a family business servicing the greater Forsyth County, all the way down to Atlanta, and even almost as far north as Dahlonega. They're professional, and they do an amazing job. You won't regret hiring H2O for all your cosmetic needs at your abode or house. You find them at h2opressurewashing.com or their Facebook page, H2O, to get a free quote. Like I said, I stand behind this company. I've been using them since 2020, so I was, like, really excited when they offered to sponsor us so that I'm not just pushing some business that I think fucking sucks and I'm having to lie all fucking shit about. And, oh, shit, can you swear during an ad? I don't know. Who cares? Josh is the owner. He's a personal friend of mine and all-around great guy. He also works with his mom and his siblings, who are also great people. They felt like family from the first time I met them. So give Josh a call for a free quote and mention this podcast and save another 10% with Brothers in Arms. Call H2O today and be the envy of your neighborhood. And we're just going to talk about his murders. The first murder, we got Penina, Penina, P-N-E-N-A. It's some kind of Hebrew name. We're going to call her Penny. Penny Berkman. Penny Berkman. Victim 1, and that was, she was murdered on January 30th, 1959. She was born Patricia Grigg in 1925, but she married Gary Berkman at the Caulfield Synagogue in 1949. And yes, that synagogue is still there. It is located at
Wow, she actually is Jewish. My bad. I'm sorry for laughing.
It's located. Well, no, she converted to Judaism to marry this guy.
Oh, okay. Because I did not think that was a typical Jewish name. That's why I was laughing. My bad.
Yeah.
Okay.
Continue. She married Gary Berkman at the Caulfield Synagogue in 1949. She converted to Judaism and adopted her Hebrew name, Penina Berkman. But we're just going to call her Penny. And that Caldwell Synagogue is still there. It's located at 572 Inkerman Road, Melbourne, Australia. Still there. But the marriage ended rather acrimoniously after 6 years, and she and her son Mark, they moved to Perth. And soon she would start dating her neighbor by the name of Fotis Fointis, and I thought that was so fucked up. Fotis Fointis. And he was a Greek-born radio DJ. And after one of their dates on a night out with him, while sleeping in her own bed, old Ugly Eddie crept through a window and plunged a 17-centimeter bladed knife repeatedly into her body.
How many inches is 17 centimeters?
Yeah, that's 6.7 inches.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
And after plunging it over and over in her body, he hit her heart. And luckily her son was not there. He was being babysat by some friends back in Melbourne. Police suspected her boyfriend, Fotis Fointis, or whatever his Greek-ass name was. But by lack of evidence, they couldn't hold him. And he would then return to Greece, never return to Australia. And old Gary Berkman would then take Mark, her son Mark, back to Israel, and they would never return to Australia again. And
wait, hold up. So they just deported the guy anyways?
No. He was released because of lack of evidence.
Okay, but they didn't. I thought they were just like, oh, you didn't do it, but we're deporting you.
No, they never found enough evidence on him because he didn't do it. And it scared him so bad.
Oh, so he returned to Greece on his own accord.
Yeah, it scared him so bad he went to Greece. He went back to Greece. That's where he was from.
Oh, and then said, you didn't do it, but you got to get the fuck out of here.
And then Penny's son, Mark, who was being babysat that night, who was not in the house, her ex-husband, who real father, had custody, and they moved back to Israel because they were already Israelites.
Gotcha.
So now we're going to move on to victim number 2, which was Jillian McPherson Brewer, and she was killed December 20th, 1959. She was the great-granddaughter of Sir McPherson Robertson, founder of Mac Robertson's Chocolate Confectionery Company, and she was also the heiress to that company. And I couldn't find a lot of details on this murder, only that she was struck in the head and body with a hatchet and stabbed repeatedly with a pair of scissors. So the last person was stabbed with a knife, and this one was just hacked to death with a damn hatchet and stabbed with scissors. This is why the police can't ever line anything up. And all the details of this death have nothing to do with anything. All the details I could find had nothing to do with the death. It all had to do with this deaf mute. And I guess that's the legal term. Does it matter if you call deaf? Should you call them deaf mutes people or deaf dumb people? I don't know what to say. What you think, Nick?
I think they just called them simple. back in the day, I think they just called them simple. I'm just going to call them
a deaf mute because they're not going to listen to this anyway. Right? Deaf people ain't listening to this, are they?
And dude, we are Helen Keller's favorite podcast.
Okay, if you're a deaf person listening to this podcast,
we love you.
Fuck off.
I know we hate you. We hate you. Fuck you.
And his
name, if you're colorblind,
this deaf mute down the road from this really famous heiress was a deaf mute named Daryl Beamish, and as cops were questioning the area, they were questioning him, and he seemed suspicious. He seemed so suspicious that they took him in for questioning, and even started accusing him of killing this Jillian McPherson Brewer, the heiress. So much they thought that he had killed her that they started really berating him. Berating him so much that he then provided 4 confessions. 4 confessions to a detective by the name of Owen Litch. 2 confessions through a sign language interpreter, and 2 written statements. Beamish would later claim quote, they were obtained by intimidations and threats and were completely untrue. He was sentenced 2 years later in 1961 to death by hanging. But that sentence was commuted to life, and he served 16 years for this wrongful murder. And he was finally paroled in 1977, and it wasn't overturned until 2005. And that's going to happen. That's going to happen some more. Now we're going to talk about his third victim. Where am I at? Third victim. Rosemary Anderson and her boyfriend. This was the one that I thought was going to go really quick, but this is the longest one I got. Rosemary Anderson died 2/9/1963. Rosemary and her boyfriend John Button, they were on a date. Oh, and it was John Button's 19th birthday, and they started arguing. And he was wanting that birthday blowjob or whatever they do back in the 1963s. And they got to arguing so much that Rosemary wanted out of the fucking car. She wanted to walk the rest of the way home. She was insistent about that, and he finally just stopped the car and let her out. He followed her for a little while. He kept telling her, he's like, come on now. Quote, come on, get back in, yo, cunt. Because they use that as a term of endearment there in Australia. But she refused. He finally just backed off, and he let her, gave her a couple minutes to, walk it off, and he parked the car and waited. And then he went back to try again. And as he went down the road, he found old Rosemary Anderson face down in the sand, bleeding profusely, where he took her, put her in the car, took her to a doctor surgeon. I guess that's Australian stuff. I don't know. They called the cops, and they took her to a hospital. And they brought him in for questioning. I air quoted that there. But I guess nobody can see, an air quote. And then after...
it's not a visual medium, bro.
After they brought him in for questioning, air quotes, he finally asked her, how is Rosemary? And they said, dead. She's dead. And this is when Sean turned into a little bitch. And the cops turned into fucking badasses and beat the shit out of John until he confessed that he ran her over. He only did that because he thought he didn't really do it, and he would eventually get him out of it. Like we ain't heard that before. All right. After the confession, he was charged with willful murder. And what happened next came straight... What happens next came straight from John's mouth. Most of the previous shit had too, but I did take some liberties and I put some here's and there. But this shit is verbatim. This shit's funny. This shit comes straight out of John's mouth. Quote, Fremantle Prison was dawning from the outside, but much worse from the inside. I was led to death row and placed in a cell with a mattress on the floor and a toilet bucket. I was locked up 23 hours a day. I was only let out to talk to my lawyer and my parents. I spent 3 months there until my trial. Okay, end quote. And then now, check out this guy's super luck. Quote, after a week-long trial, the jury retired to consider. Having reached a decision, they were asked, quote, that was a quote within a quote, I guess, if I was found guilty or not guilty. Not guilty was the reply. I looked at the door to the courtroom and wondered if I should just deck it to the door or wait until the judge told me I was free. I would wait until the judge told me I was free. Then the foreman called out, quote, air quotes again, I'm sorry, Your Honor. We meant guilty. End quote. The confession was the only evidence and the small dent in his car was what convicted him of manslaughter, and he was sentenced to 10 years of hard labor. He only did 5.5 years, but was on his record until February 2022, and he also did a bunch of bitch crying for 33 fucking years. But Ugly Ed, this is what really happened. Ugly Ed claimed after his trial, he ran her over while John was waiting her out in those few minutes. Rosemary caught Ugly Ed's eye, and he sped up behind her, and he hit her with his stolen car. He hit her so hard she flew over the car, landed in some sand beside the road, and when he was convinced that she was dead, so he just sped off. Ugly Ed would admit and even show police evidence of where, when, what, and how he did things. He could even remember how he stole, what he stole, when he stole it, the denominations, the coins, everything. He had everything like down to a T, and they still didn't let those people off.
Yeah, justice system's pretty weak.
Yeah, he was
Australia or America. Norm Macdonald would call him a real jerk.
The more I read about this guy, he was a bad dude. 8 days later, Constant Lucy Madrill would be found in her front lawn dead. As she lay asleep, old Ugly Ed found her back door unlocked. Literally, her back door unlocked, not her butthole. But he may have found that shit unlocked too. I don't know. But he crept in through the back door of her house and found her sleeping in bed. He then took a lamp cord and strangled her to death. After she died, he raped the corpse.
Wow.
Yeah, that's where shit starts to get a little sick.
That is what we call escalation.
Yeah.
After murdering, we're still escalating.
Yeah.
That's pretty crazy.
He drug her to the front yard. Then he molested her with an empty whiskey bottle he found in the front yard. And then he placed it in her hand like she had done that fucked up shit herself, and he ran off. And there was just so many attempted murders, just one giant crime spree for fucking years. It was just, man, I've skipped so many things. I'm just skipping shit. I'm just skipping shit.
There's a lot. It's really not all on you. There's so much.
So much.
There's so much.
All right, now I'm going to get to the end. I've skipped a bunch. I've hit some highlights. Now we're getting to Shirley Martha McLeod. August 10th, 1963. McLeod was babysitting one night at Dolkeith, which was a suburb of Perth, for the Dowds, for Carl and Wendy Dowds. When shortly after midnight, Ugly Ed found the back door unlocked, and he crept in the back door and up a small flight of stairs, and he could see McLeod asleep on the couch. She was sitting upright, and she had fell asleep studying, like next to a heater, because it was wintertime. And Ugly Ed shot her one time in the head with a .22 caliber rifle.
So strange.
And
his method is so strange how it changes. So strange.
And this rifle is going to be his undoing. While fleeing the scene of the crime, he got spooked, and he threw his little .22 rifle into the bushes. And then around 2 a.m., Carl Dodd and his wife, whom McLeod was babysitting their baby for, came home and found her dead on the couch. And then while investigating the murder scene and all that, they found this rifle in the bushes. While fleeing the scene of the crime, something spooked him, and he hid his .22 in some bushes. And around 2 a.m., Carl Dodd and his wife returned home to find Melanie dead. And then after the cops were called in while investigating the murder, the police began to suspect that the crimes were all being committed by the same man. They didn't have really any evidence on it, but they just had a hunch that it was. And while looking through the evidence of the crime scene, the police found a rifle in the bushes. And it matches the forensics of the bullet used in McLeod's murder. And they take it in to examine. They find nothing. But they do get this really good idea that, maybe we should just swap this rifle out for a dummy rifle. put it back in the bushes and tie some fishing line to it and just wait for like somebody to come back and get it.
Is that a true story? Like tying a $1 bill out on the sidewalk and just putting a fishing line on it?
Yeah.
And just wait with it?
They literally
Wow,
put
is that
a
a
dummy
true
rifle.
story?
They literally put a dummy rifle in the bushes, tie some fishing line to it. They build this like little tent blind like deer hunter thing, a little couple feet away, and for 17 days they stake it out.
You gotta be quicker than that.
They I got a little daughter. We gotta be quicker than
Gotta be
that.
quicker than that.
For 17 days they wait.
Seriously.
And finally, on September 1st, Ugly Ed does just what the police want him to do. He comes walking up casually to that bush. He looks in it. He looks down. He sees the rifle. He kind of walks away. And he just keeps walking away. He walks away completely. He's just like, okay. So then, we wait 3 more days. And Ed comes casually walking up again. This time he looks down in the bush. And he sees the rifle. He grabs the rifle and starts walking with it. And that's when the cops move in. They tackle him. They told him he came back to retrieve his rifle that he used to kill old McLeod. He claimed 3 days later he was walking down the road and found a rifle in this bush. And he was coming back now to retrieve it. So he got kind of smart,
Yeah, that's clever.
Didn't work. They finally decide, like, nah, this is the guy. And they take him back to the station. Initially, he does try to deny. He does try to deny everything and say he's innocent. He was just coming back to check that rifle. But soon he would confess to 22 violent crimes, 8 murders, 14 attempted murders, more than 250 break-ins and burglaries, and all with remarkable detail. Like, he could tell you everything he stole from wherever he was. And we're coming to the end. I don't want to draw out ends. I don't think the ends need to be drawn out right at all. So he tried to claim he didn't. He told everything, remarkable details of what he did. He was tried, convicted, and sentenced to death by hanging. And on October 26, 1964, Ugly Ed is hung by the neck until he is dead. And he becomes the last person to be hanged in West Australia. And just to add a little bit of insult to injury, he was buried on the prison grounds, but he was buried on top of the last woman to be hanged in West Australia, who was a child killer by the name of Martha Rendell. I just thought it was so funny that they just buried him on top of another woman.
Is that what we would call a fitting end? Pile you on in the same grave, like, yeah, fuck it. I mean, I'd say it's a pretty fitting end for this guy. I mean, he was goofy. He's definitely the ugliest version of John Bernthal you could ever see. He's like if the Punisher was
he does
like super dumpy looking. God, he's like who's the crazy guy who was a child actor who's super crazy now? Who's that guy?
Corey Feldman.
Yeah, he looks like somebody Corey Feldman would have fucked. No, the other guy. He was in like Even Stevens.
What was he in?
Nah, not that one. He was like Even Stevens and a bunch of shit. Like, he's really good. He was actually in a movie. Shia LaBeouf. He was actually in a movie with John Bernthal. Fury, I think. He's like if Shia LaBeouf and John Bernthal fucked and made an ugly fucking abomination and thought they should bury it in the sand and pretend it never happened. That would be Edgar Cook.
Yeah. Ugly Ed. And he was buried on top of another woman. A child killer.
It was great. Did you have an outro?
No, that's it. How would you like to end it?
No, I mean, I think again, that's a fitting end. I mean,
Paul's here, and you could be like, "Hey," and that's a wrap, folks. And I'd be like, "Yeah." How you want to end it?
I think that's pretty fair. I mean, I thought it was pretty in-depth.
The story's over with. I'm just trying to figure out how to end the podcast. Do you want to do like and that's all she wrote.
I wish we could do that. All she wrote if it wasn't fucking gimmicky. But what do we have a tagline for Brothers in Arms moving forward?
No, most of the time my phone just dies.
Signing out. Yeah. Now my phone's dead.
Yeah, my phone's fully charged. It's still going. So.
Fuck, my phone died. Yeah.
Yeah, it's usually like shit. My fucking phone died, but I made sure to charge it.
Brothers in Arms. Well, I hate to be cheeky, but if we're Brothers in Arms, always say, "Oh shit, I'm all out of ammo." I'm all out of ammo.
I'm all out of ammo too.